This meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. It's daylight because of daylight savings. Isn't that nice? Yeah. Yes. So welcome to our regular meeting of the UNA board. I want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional unceded lands of the Musqueam people. And move that the board approve the March 12th, 2024 agenda as circulated. For the secretary. Eagle. Discussion? All in favor? Passes. I'll move that the board approve the February 20th, 2024 minutes as circulated. Seconder. Eagle. Discussion? All in favor? Passes. So, that's great. We're going to have I think this is going to be a record fast meeting tonight.
Don't jinx.
I don't believe in jinxes. I'm predicting the future and going to committed to making it that way. Okay, so the first item is the campus committee planning report to Carol.
Oh, yes, thank you. The report is before you. I'm happy to take questions back or attempt to answer them if I can. Maybe I'll just point out that the public engagement for the Neighborhood Climate Action Plan is actively underway. There was a workshop held on the weekend. I don't know if any of you had a chance to pop by. There was also one held yesterday evening, and there's a survey online as well for folks if they're not able to attend the events in person. There's some walking tours happening as well.
Thank you. Any questions for Carol? I have one. It's a usual one that I noticed that the Holy celebration is March 30th, and I think it's very close, adjacent to the Hawthorne neighborhood. And there's always questions about sound and noise and so on. I'm just asking, you've got special plans in place?
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, Holy has been an event held over the last few years. Admittedly, it created quite a lot of impacts in the adjacent residential communities a few years ago with the sound and the vibrations and amplified sound. So through the event and film team, they've taken a lot of effort and care to manage the noise expectations, working with the event organizers and putting limits on those noise levels. Over the past 2 years, I think the event has been well received and well managed, so that trend is expected to continue. Notifications will also be going out regarding the details around it.
Thanks, Carol. Any other questions? Good. Well, let's move on to the next item. And so we've got the Electoral Aid Director Monthly Report. And I believe there was an email that she sent out midweek last week. She's unable to attend. She sends her regrets. So I wonder if there's anyone who has any questions or things that we would like to carry forward to her.
I would just like to convey our thanks for the detailed coverage of important stuff that's going on around the neighborhoods in that newsletter, and I'll say that I know many residents very much appreciate that. If someone could convey that.
Can we designate one of the directors? Okay, great. Thanks very much. Good. We'll move on then to the March management report.
Thank you very much. Pleased to be reporting on this past month's activities for the organization. My month too, so it's been exciting and interesting every day. The report from my section outlines some of the activities for the month. If there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to respond to them. I think there were two that I particularly wanted to highlight for the board. Under operations, we have been undertaking the review of the proposals for the online voting system. Just wanted to reiterate to the board that the RFP was very well responded to. We had a great set of companies that responded. There seems to be quite a high level of interest, given that we will be the first local government, in quotation marks, organization in British Columbia to undertake online voting. So there's a great deal of interest in getting into that marketplace. That's been helpful, I think, in response. Staff are going through the interview process with opponents, and I'm expecting probably the next cycle we'll have a report to the board. The other item that I wanted to highlight, because it has been of interest, certainly board members in the community, is under community relations. The last item, been spending a fair bit of time back and forth on securing a date for a meeting with the ABC president. That is a challenge, balancing the schedules. So we continue to look for a date. I think we're looking at probably late spring for a meeting with the UNA board, at least at the first go around, and then perhaps we can look towards a more community-based event in for the first round in public, but we'll look to see date secured. The progress there.
Are there any questions?
Thanks, Paul. On the online voting system, does it look like we're going to come in under or on budget for the quotes that you've received?
I would suggest that we will be within the budget that's been established for it. A range of sophistication of the systems with probably functionality that we may not need necessarily with them. But I'm not concerned with the budget this time.
Any other questions?
I might just continue with the communication section.
Good. Oh yeah,
Glenda's
down here
on vacation. I think just highlighting the budget consultation and feedback, we're working towards getting those common themes and kind of the FAQ piece onto the website. As it outlines here, there is some information available now. I think the other thing that I would want to highlight is the most recent edition of the Campus Resident. And I'll highlight, just because I can, an introductory question and answer for myself, which recently was part of the newspaper, which was fine. See, but nonetheless, an opportunity to get some exposure to the community. The only other one that I would really want to highlight and leave it for the board to ask any questions on the materials presented is we continue to work towards the online guidebook for newcomers. That's work that came out of the advisory committee, and it is progressing, and we'll continue on getting that digital guidebook prepared and available.
Thanks very much, Paul. Got questions regarding the communication? Phil?
Not a question, but a comment on the Campus Resident and the print edition. People I've talked to don't read the online edition, so I'm wondering. And it's a very small sample, admittedly. I'm just, and it includes me actually, because I tend to save the link and then a month or two later realize I haven't looked at it. Are there any statistics on how read the online edition is?
I believe we probably have some web statistics in terms of how often it's being read. And the other aspect that patient staff are looking at is how to introduce some methodology to get a sense of the actual numbers of folks that are reading the paper version as well. I'm hopeful that we need to give the paper edition a little bit more time and be able to gather some more information on its readership, as it were, versus its distribution numbers. But certainly we can come back to the board with some information on what we see in terms of clicks on the newsletter version, the online version.
We do have experience with the print edition from when John Tompkins was putting it out, and it was very popular and by all accounts widely read. So I wouldn't expect that to have changed. I think we should be exploring producing the print edition more frequently. And I was going to make a motion today, but without Glenda here and without the statistics, maybe I should save it for the next meeting to direct staff to look at options for increasing the frequency of the print edition. But I guess I'll save that till the April meeting to make that motion.
Thanks, Bill. That motion would be welcome. I mean, I'm not sure if you wanted to do it now, but I think it would be welcome. It would give staff a chance to look at things.
I'll make it, if there isn't a secondary, it'll just float, but I'll make the motion. And I move that the board direct staff to prepare a report to the board on options for increasing the frequency of the print version of the Campus Resident.
Seconder? Eagle? Good. Anyone want to speak for?
I'll just say that it's something that has come up at our newspaper editorial committee meetings, and in those discussions, we fully understand that it's up to the board to determine any kind of change in the terms of reference for the newspaper and the committee. But I think the idea of at least looking into the possibility, what would it take in terms of costs, in terms of staff workload, et cetera, looking into the possibility of a more frequent print edition is worthwhile, and we wouldn't presuppose the outcome, right? There might be several things we'll want to consider before we decide to move ahead with something like that. But I think it is worth.
Okay, thanks, Eagle. Murray?
Yeah, I share Bill's sentiments for my own part. I know it's actually quite exciting to get a physical piece of paper to read, and I don't find myself drawn to yet another online publication where there are many, and there's lots of attention for that, and one's often looking for a reason not to be on one's computer. So, but that's small end. So I think this actually is a bit of a catalyst for it. Would be great to see if we could get a little bit more of a rigorous sampling of people's preferences, and I think this is an opportunity for the board before the next month's meeting to sample our own communities, the stratas we live in, and just talk to a few more people and try to gather some input. So I know I'm motivated to do that from my own part.
Thanks, Murray. Bill?
Yeah, I guess the comment that Murray made about people having so much stuff online is what I heard too, that there's so much to read that the last thing people want to do is read something else online. I just remind the board that until John passed away, the paper was coming out in print form monthly, so it was available regularly in a print form. And it was available online, but just as PDF. So I appreciate that some people like much fancier web-based stuff, but it was available online as well then too.
Very interesting. I'm going to add my own comment here, but I agree with the print version. My own personal experience is that I've actually been taking time to look at the online version and have not been disappointed by the accessibility and of the articles. So I would be interested to see what some of the data, if there was any way of getting that data out to to better understand what we're dealing with. The other comment I wanted to say was I was under the impression that it was maybe a budgetary reason for only having 4 publications a year. I don't know if there's implications to having, you know, what that, I know there is implication, but I don't know what the increment is to getting the, and that would be important in the, I guess we're ready to vote. All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. That's great. Okay, good. So let's move on to the recreation. Is it the recreation? Yes. Dave.
Yeah, good morning, or sorry, good evening, board, and welcome to spring. I told everybody good morning today. My report is in front of you. Some good information there this month. One thing I wanted to highlight, which was unique for us, was I was able to attend Sport for Life Summit in Victoria, and just despite how they advertised it, one of the things that was interesting was they really focused on newcomers and refugees landing. It was attended very well, but not within municipal-based community centers, but yet it was focused on that. So the UNA and its new program became quite a big discussion point. So away from everything, I was kept a couple hours in the evening talking to groups about how we've set this up and where we're headed with it. So it's good to know that that's something that's being done, you know, basically Canada-wide, which is good. So you might have my report if there's any questions.
Thanks, Dave. Are there any questions? Murray.
Yeah, I had a question just about the drop-in gym availability, and it's not in your report, it's a general question, if I may. I recently came to my attention that some children were heading to Richmond to use the Olympic Oval basketball facility from basically the UBC area. And I wondered what the provision was here for drop-in basketball. Any residents online, and I think there are none as usual, but if there were, they might be encouraged to know I'm asking about indoor basketball.
I remember the outdoor well. So with our drop-in programs, we're obviously limited by the gym itself. We've had growth in table tennis, badminton, pickleball specifically, but we've made sure that we allocate time for our basketball. We can't, right now, we're just not where we want to be with some of our sports, but one of the things we're doing right now is we are doing an evaluation of the average number of attendees of each session, so that we can, as we start our programming for the fall, so that we can entertain how we're distributing the gym use, just making sure that we're not just focusing on, you know, what the highest numbers are, but that we're having an overall picture of what we're making available to the community. But we could use an outdoor basketball.
Sorry, just to follow up. So is there any time for youth, say, or young adults to drop in and play basketball?
Yes, there currently is, yeah. I believe it's Friday nights, and I know there's a second session as well for young adults.
Point of information, check on that, because I've been here a couple times in the evening or late afternoon, and I've witnessed them playing basketball, and I don't think it was a Friday, but
yeah.
So that's, yeah, I don't know what it was, but Eagle.
Yeah, relating to drop-in basketball and other kind of drop-in opportunities, I'm wondering if we have in the past, or there's a possibility in the future, to consult with the Vancouver School Board about how we're going to put it, maximizing the possibilities of the gym or gyms that are right next door here at the high school. And I know I can't speak for Vancouver VSB facilities in particular, but I know in plenty of communities around North America, schools make make their facilities available to the public at various times. And obviously you have to consider the sports teams use and other school uses, but especially in the evening when often there isn't anything going on, it's kind of a missed opportunity if it's just closed to the public.
Thank you for that. Just to answer that question, we have reached out. One of the differences with the Vancouver School Board is that the Vancouver School Board and the rental of their facilities are two different areas. The rental area, we've talked to them about any type of a discount because it is relatively expensive to rent their space. They are 100% profit driven in that, so there's no chance of a discount. And of course, they give through, as you mentioned, to their sports first, and then usually it's bookings as we come along. Just to answer the other question, we have basketball drop-ins on Monday and Saturday, and then we also have the youth open gym on the Saturday as well.
Thanks. Faith?
So, Dave, I received some inquiries from the parents last month regarding the ban of the U-Hill secondary students. So previously, they noticed that there was a ban for second floor, but recently there was another ban for the first floor. I want to know the reason and how long it will last, and how the other U-Hill students, because you ban them probably just because of small group of behaviors. But for the other U-Hill students, if they want to use the public area, how will they process? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to be very clear, originally students were banned from upstairs for activities of noise outside of programs that were running, as well as some actions that were taken into a women's yoga class. So we removed them. The group that came downstairs, while they do leave a large mess behind, which has not helped us with our recent battle with mice, I did not ban them. I was not in town. This action occurred and it was stopped as soon as I got word of it. But my understanding was it wasn't a small group. It was a large group of students. There was apparently food throwing and a whole bunch of stuff. So I do stand behind the staff to make the decision to remove everybody, but there's been no ban in place and there's no ban moving forward.
Great, thank you so much for that clarification, Dave. So in the future, I want to know if no matter a small group or large group of students, is it possible just to ban a specific names? So for those people who didn't do act right, so we just ban those students with the names, but for the other students, they still can use the public place because it's just unfair for other students who have the good behavior. They also cannot enter the community center. So that's the parents' concerns.
Thank you. To ban a certain group by just their names is very difficult. So to give you an example, we had an incident earlier this year where a specific group of students let off firecrackers into the washroom. We were able to use our closed circuit TV and identify those individuals. However, the school, when we went to the school, were willing to identify them by their names only underneath. In other words, the school did not want to stand behind anything that we follow up with that. So often we're left with, when we confront these students, the students will come forward and say, it wasn't me, it was my friend, all that. So that's where we do get into the decision that when we close stuff, we close. Now, the only thing, again, just to repeat that, we have a restriction of students eating their lunches upstairs. That's to make sure we've got safety amongst our staff upstairs and the programs that are running. There is no ban downstairs.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Because just to give an example, the parents told me, oh, if U-Hill students are banned, but how about other secondary students, if they come here, so how we identify if they're from U-Hill or others? So there are pretty still some concerns and how we can process that. So yeah, I will just leave that to you, just to give you the feedback of the residents and their concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. And Dave, for your questions. Dave, I have one question, well, maybe two. The first one is I've noted, just by observation, residents of Hawthorne have been using the workout here at Westbrook. And so I asked them, well, why do you use this one and not the old barn? And some of them have said, well, free weights, the bench press and things, so it's equipment related. Yeah, others haven't really, they didn't, more feeling or something, I don't know. But I guess one thing that I noted was they pay two different rates, so you can't use the same card. Is there any chance of making that one card for all facilities? Like the city of Vancouver would be?
Yes, thank you. That is in the plan. We are currently undergoing a little bit of a price review. We're gathering the information of different things that are happening. What I did not want to do, because there was some questions about it, was to provide a card that gave access to both facilities when we were doing the alterations to the old barn, because some of the stuff that was brought forward was, this is what I pay at the old barn. I'm never going to go to that place up at WCC, so I don't want to pay that. But the plan moving into September, we hope, is that one card gets you access to all the facilities for the fitness centers.
Thank you. Another question, sorry, Murray. My second question relates to people from outside of the UNA. I've had some UEL residents ask, gee, I feel like I'm excluded because I can't access this great facility here. In that same statement, they said, I noted that Layham's putting together a community center, but that it's smaller than the old barn, and therefore it's not the same. So yeah, I'm wondering if there's any thought, or if you ever thought of having some kind of access or pass for people who are non-UNA residents.
Yes, we certainly can do that. We currently, if you are just a member of Vancouver, you can come here and you can enter our facilities. So the issue becomes savings. So if we were to look at including the UEL and any other body, they're certainly welcome to come forward. That's the first time I've heard that information, so it's something to put on my plate. But as we move forward into this pricing system, and we're going to be looking at a few changes, so that would be something that we could definitely address. No problem.
And just a comment, really point of information on your question, Richard, on residents coming here. So I've had the feedback that the gym at the old barn, which is newly refurbished, the equipment selection was made. It's one machine that does everything, but there's only one person can use it at a time. So it's a little bit unfortunate that you can't work in parallel on different components of the machine and have several people. It's really that sort of reduced that whole section to a single occupancy gym. So that's not ideal. I'm sure maybe there's something that could be learned from there for future equipment selections, but that may be behind preference for trying to go to somewhere where there's many more options available.
Thanks. Yeah, and I hope, just based on that, I hope we're not intentionally excluding, like I'm sure it wasn't a design thing, but like what seems to be happening is, with fewer people going there, then all of a sudden it looks like fewer revenue, fewer things, and then you might say, well, let's use that space for something else. I think the demand is still there. It's just maybe the accessibility is an issue. So,
thank you. Just to add to that, as best I can, we actually have seen a growth in the number of people attending the fitness center down there. As far as the choice of the equipment at the time, there was a multi-station machine that a lot of people didn't want to see be removed. Unfortunately, we couldn't get parts for it. It was becoming a risk. So we did replace it with another multifunctional machine. The setup is different in the sense that the other machine, you could have 2 or 3 people working on it at one time. This machine, it's only one person on it at one time. We do have the fitness staff that alternate being up here to down there, and they will try to push people through and sort of help them with their exercises to show other forms that they can perform those same exercises. But one of the key ones I've heard for people coming up here as well is social aspect. This gym's a lot busier and it's got the free weights, but we do have seen an increase down at the other facility.
Very much. Any other questions for Dave? Very many. Let's move on. Wayland operation sustainability.
Hello, Richard. So the report is before everyone. I'm happy to answer any questions. And just a quick highlight is the verbal report. So in terms of the community field replacement project, we just have an update from the project management team. We have secured a vendor that will be able to provide service, and in terms of timeline, it will be take place in between the school years. So we expect the project will take place between July and August. And once we have more information, I will report back to the board in the next board meeting.
Thanks, Wayne. We've got questions for Wayne. Bill.
Again, I've got a question about Hampton Place parking. Once we get to May 13th and there's an illegally parked vehicle, will it be given one warning before it's towed? Does every vehicle get one warning first?
Thank you, Bill. So in terms of the vehicle, we won't be able to provide one warning first. But what we will do is starting on May 1st, we will put a notice on all the issue of all parked vehicle on site, whether it is on the permit only zone or whether they are in the 2 hours only zone. So the key is we want to use the communication of a physical paper slip that will slide on each windshield of the parked vehicle to remind the parking invigilation will be started as of the May 13th timeline that present in the report.
I think you've answered my question. It was only about May 13th and on, not about the earlier period. I question whether we're complying with the authorization that's been given by MOTI if we don't give a warning first. And I'll read something from the authorization letter. Exception being that vehicles that have not received a warning during the 2-week warning period be extended one additional warning. Language is not great, but be extended one additional warning, but then tracked on the same ledger by neighborhood to ensure future enforcement. So MOTI's authorization says that every vehicle has to be given one warning, not just during the initial 2-week grace period, but all the time. So my question is, are we in violation of the authorization that's been given to us by MOTI?
Bill, I don't have an answer for you right now, but happy to review the document and then get back to the board on this one.
Okay, yes, I think you, I appreciate if you got back to the board before anything starts happening, because it's important that we comply with the authorization given to the UNA. Thank you.
Sorry, Bill, I'm curious, can you say more? This authorization is a general delegation of parking responsibilities from MOTI, or what? I'm not familiar with what's happening.
Yeah, it's a May 30th, 2014 letter that authorizes the UNA to enforce through the subcontract with commissionaires to enforce parking invigilation, because parking is responsibility of MOTI, and they've authorized UNA but commissionaires to enforce it. And the ministry further asks that invigilation be structured as follows. So that's part of what the ministry wants the UNA to do, is to give keep a record, a ledger by neighborhood of all vehicles that were given warnings, and to include that beyond the initial grace period, so that every vehicle gets one warning. Towing is a pretty extreme enforcement mechanism, so you can understand why.
So now I have a question for Wayland. Is that an approach that's taken for the other neighborhoods where enforcement's in place, or is it if you're illegally parked, you're towed right now?
So for the other neighborhood, which is in the case of Chancellor, Hawthorne, Westbrook, as well as East Campus, it is towed at the first offense. there is no warning be given for any vehicle.
Just on that point, the letter applies to Hawthorne, Westbrook, Hampton, East Campus, and Chancellor. So it applies to all the neighborhoods.
Sounds like we've got a little bit of research to do and report back. Thanks very much. Any other questions regarding operations and sustainability report? Hearing any, we'll say thank you very much and we'll move on to the finance. Nina.
Good evening, everyone. My report is before you. I think there's two people in my line. We are in the March is year end for the UNA, so actually is gearing up for the year end closing. So I'm actually very happy. This month we actually don't have a finance and audit committee, not because I don't want to, but I think if we free me up some time. So you probably see that from the report. There is no report specifically for this March Finance and Audit Committee. But that being said, the second highlight I want to bring is the UBC portfolio, the portfolio manager specifically for the Neighbors Fund. His name is Alan Chang. He actually has stepped down from his position. So I just wanted to tell the board and then to thank him for his service for at least the past 3 years. He's been working very closely and presenting in the AGM, for the Neighbors Fund. And he's actually, I think, the sole knowledge holder for the Neighbors Fund for UBC. So I think at the meantime, UBC Finance is trying to find a replacement of Alan, or maybe just another position. I'm not sure. Maybe Carol can fill me in with that. But that being said, I think for me, I know it within a very, very short time. So I try my very best within the 3-4 days to kind of wrap things up with him, just to make sure that we have a proper closing for the year. I think we good. So Alan, I was working with Alan and with the help of Carol and Chris, and then I get to where I want to get to. So I think it's good. Yeah. So Carol, feel free to add anything.
I wish I had more to add. I don't. I know that they're looking to replace the position.
That's my report.
Thanks, Anita. We've got questions for hearing any. We'll say thank you very much and thank you for that management report. At this point in time, we'll go on to the BC Corps of Commissioners Agreement. Wayne.
Thank you very much, Richard. So the agreement in terms of the BC Commissioners BC is in front of you. Happy to answer any questions. Just a very high level reporting is this is an ongoing contract that we have with Commissioners BC to provide parking enforcement and invigilation service around all UNA neighborhoods.
Sorry, our CAO, I want to make sure he's okay.
I'm okay.
Okay. Yes, Murray.
Thanks, Hoyland. Would this cover the Hampton Place invigilation?
It will cover the Hampton's Place invigilation. It has been listed out in the original since day one. So it will cover all neighborhoods, including Hampton, as part of the original design of the agreement.
So we've been paying for that all along and not receiving the service?
It's included on the listing, but having said that, in terms of having enforcement in Hampton is rather straightforward. It can be easily accommodated into daily routine. So we don't expect that it will significantly increase the cost of invigilation in the area.
Thank you. Will it increase the cost at all? The cost is specified here, right? $125,000?
It won't increase.
So not significantly, not at all. Thanks.
Maybe a note, there is a year-over-year increase, but it's not due to that, right? Bill.
Just one little thing to fix in the contract on page 35. There's a sentence that reads, if disputes are determined to be valid, period. Well, it's not much of a sentence. It's page 35.8 on that page. The last two so-called sentences need to be fixed up, just into one sentence.
Okay, we found that. We can fix it. So that, so if I make the motion, then it would include it as amended. Yeah, so if we go with, I'll move that the board approve the 24-25 BC Corps of Commissioners agreement as amended and authorize the chair to execute the agreement. Second. Bill? Further discussion? Or
Do you think this is good level, a good price for the level of service? Is that, I have no idea how one would assess that, and obviously we've used them for a long time, but how do we think about that in terms of the price quality intersection?
Well, thank you, Mary. In terms of the price, I won't be able to give a very constructive answer on that one, but having said that, I will compare it to a nighttime security guard that we hired for the Westwood Community Center during one of the power outage that we had last year. Speaking of the price point, it's compared to a security guard, it's a lot more cheaper than what we see, than what we hired back then. And then in terms of the service that they provide, it really depends on the invigilator that is on site. Some invigilator will require more guidance in order to bring them up to speed, while other is really doing good work. At this moment, our invigilator is doing a reasonable job, and then I will just leave it at that. I'm happy to answer any questions.
okay. Good questions. Discussion? All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so the next item is the UBC withdrawal from the Neighbors Fund. Director Holmes.
I think I'll let Athena comment on this one and speak to this one, and then I'll make the motion when we get to it. Is that okay, Athena?
Yes, of course, yes. Okay. So when the Schedule F is being finalized, there is a specific formula to calculate the used to call athletic access fee, now is called the recreation facility charges. And there is a component is regarding the CPI, which is the inflation rate. So when the first motion was brought to the board in January or maybe in December, my memory failed me. The CPI was not factored into that. So this amount is to adjust it, that specific amount. That is a 2023-24 cost, which is this year, because the motion in January was provided a very, very precise and specific amount. So we have an amount in there, so we need to adjust it that. So that is just to take care of that part.
Thanks, Athena. Any questions for understand? Bill, do you want to move?
Okay, I move that the board approve the withdrawal by UBC of an additional, I'm adding the word additional, amount of $41,721 from the Neighbors Fund as residents' contributions for recreational facilities for 2023-24.
Second. Eagle. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Very good. Okay. Well, we're up to almost the last item here. Neighbors Agreement Committee update. Director.
Thank you. This time I actually have some progress to report. But first I should let the board know that Terry has resigned from the committee for health reasons, and he doesn't want any more said than that. We met with UBC yesterday. Ernie was there. Paul attended, Wegland attended by video, well, three of them attended by video, Mike Feely, to discuss schedules B, C, and D. And those are very important schedules because they set out the municipal-like services that the UNA has agreed to provide, and also some of the standards, frequency for providing these services. So the purpose of the meeting was to go through a draft, and the board, I'm pretty sure the board saw this, I think a meeting or two ago, saw a draft of these schedules. Purpose of the meeting was to go through any issues that UBC had with the schedules. And for the most part, we're pretty close to agreement. There are a few things. Maybe the most difficult one is the urban trees. Those are the trees in rhododendron wood, what's it called, rhododendron wood forest or whatever. And the trees along at the north end of Westbrook by 16th Avenue, the trees along by Pacific Spirit Park. UBC just assumed the UNA would take responsibility for those trees, and we've said no, need more discussion. You know, we're concerned A, about cost, and B, about liability. You know, we have to be very concerned about liability as a board because you know, we have trouble. We've only got one insurer that's willing to provide us with liability insurance. So UBC has agreed that they will consider further, you know, what sort of arrangement they want to propose. And so that'll come back to us, to the committee, I guess, and probably to the board. Keeping in mind with this and with everything that UNA has not actually contractually bound itself to do an awful lot. It's not bound itself to do anything in Westbrook. And that's something we've had to make clear to UBC that, you know, even though UNA is doing certain things, there's no obligation for them to be doing, the UNA to be doing these things. So this is one where they just assumed the UNA would look after all the trees, and we said, well, no, it needs more consideration. So that's where that stands. I don't remember if there's any. I don't think there was anything else that significant that's left open from the from those schedules. A good one. We discussed at the board whether the UNA should have responsibility for the repairs and so on of Westbrook Mall, and it's put forward to UBC that no, it shouldn't, because it's a major access to UBC and used by construction equipment, used by a lot of buses. So UBC agreed with us that it makes sense that UNA not be responsible for that, except for the parking that we'll put forward. So that's been agreed. And something else that's been agreed that we discussed at the board meeting is the landscaping for the area south of Westbrook to Southwest Marine Drive and below Stadium Road down to Southwest Marine Drive. And UBC agreed that the UNA shouldn't be responsible for those areas either. So it was a very productive meeting, actually. The other schedule we discussed is Schedule G, which sets out the process for developing new rules. And the only one that's ever been talked about that I'm aware of is animal control. And it's a very paternalistic sort of schedule right now. It says staff are to do this, and then they're to take it to the UNA board and blah, blah, blah. UBC agreed with us that no, they shouldn't be the agreement shouldn't be dictating UNA's internal procedures. That really all we need is UNA is to consult with campus community planning when developing any rules, and there's to be public consultation. And so if that's all there is, it doesn't even need to be a schedule, it'll just go into the body of the agreement. They'll need to think about it some more, and their legal department will need to consider it, but that's where we are today with that one. So that completes my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Questions for Bill or discussion, comments? Eagle.
I just want to thank all those who've been involved with this, Bill, but also Murray and then Terry, if you could convey our really deep, enduring gratitude to him for all that he has done, and wish him well.
I wonder if we can make a note in our minutes with regard to that we thank the board. Thanks, Terry,
for his service on the
Okay.
Neighbors Agreement Committee.
On the Neighbors Agreement Committee. Thank you. Did have one question regarding the UBC getting back to you on the bylaws. It's understood that any change in rules, bylaws would still need to be approved by the Board of Governors, right? Is that?
Well, an interesting comment was made that they're exploring the possibility that we don't need Board of Governors approval. I assume the idea is that campus and community planning, or somebody up the line from campus community planning would be able to permit it. We didn't get into specifics, but they're exploring that possibility. I'd be surprised if it actually can be done, because the power to make these rules is in the University Act and given specifically to the board. Whether that could be delegated, well, that'll be for UBC to decide, but they're going to look at it.
Okay, thanks. Great. Any other questions? Oh, Bernie, go ahead.
This is actually more of a question of a general nature beyond this topic. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's related to neighbors agreement?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. No, we
I'll hold it.
So we'll now go to, I'll note that there's no unfinished business and no new business on the agenda. But if you would like to make a motion that you have some new business, maybe a question or something, then I think we could do that at this point in time.
I think I can handle it informally. Thank you. Give me a motion.
I second the informal handling.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm just going to move that the board adjourn into a closed session to discuss matters that are or related to discussions and dealings with other entities or individuals where disclosure of the information being discussed could be harmful to the UNA's interests, and the approval of minutes for a closed session or restricted closed session of the board meeting. Eagle. Discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. There we go. So I'm going to adjourn for 15 minutes. And I believe there's some sandwiches or dinner. Thanks for, that was a record fast.